Before becoming president, Donald Trump was pretty clear about where he stood on climate change. The people at Vox put together a list of 115 times Trump posted on Twitter about it. He has called it a hoax and once famously blamed it on the Chinese. But now, less than 24 hours after making that decision with huge climate implications, no one in the White House would answer whether the president believed climate change was real.
Yes or no, does the president believe that climate change is real and a threat to the United States?
You know what's interesting about all the discussions we had through the last several weeks have been focused on one singular issue. Is Paris good or not for this country?
I'd like to go back to the first question that was asked that you didn't answer. Does the president believe today that climate change is a hoax?
You know, I did answer the question because I said the discussions the president and I have had over the last several weeks have been focused on one key issue. Is Paris good or bad for this country?
You're the EPA administrator. Shouldn't you be able to tell the American people whether or not the president still believes that climate change is a hoax? Where does he stand?
I've answered the question a couple times.
What does the president actually believe about climate change? Does he still believe it's a hoax? Could you clarify that, since apparently nobody else in the White House can?
Yeah, I have not had an opportunity to have that discussion.
Would it be possible for you to have that conversation with him and then report back to us at the next briefing?
If I can, I will.
We keep saying what a time for the White House press corps. We're also blessed to have a quality White House press corps right now. Let's welcome to the broadcast two journalists out on the West Coast tonight. Jamil Smith, senior national correspondent for MTV News, notably an MSNBC veteran back in the day, and Seema Mehta, political writer for the Los Angeles Times. Welcome to you both. And I guess, well, Seema, let's start with the politics of it. Several people in the last 24 hours have said maybe he's just going to become a 40% president.
I mean, he's clearly speaking to his base, and this isn't really any surprise because at campaign rally after campaign rally last year, he was very clear in what he felt about the Paris Agreement and that he planned to get out of it. So I don't think anybody should be surprised that he did this. I do find particularly his EPA administrator's inability to answer the question about whether he believes climate change is real. I find that inexplicable.
Jamil, what are the chances that 190 countries, at Donald Trump's urging, are going to come back, call it something different, decide something different?
I'd say that's a zero chance. Frankly, Angela Merkel and other European leaders made it clear that this is not a negotiable agreement. And you see the responses by cities and states, New York, California, and Washington. They understand that this was going to happen. They believed his actual promise, for one, that he was actually going to keep. And so they were prepared for him to make the wrong decision.
Jamil, the other thing you're reading is that everything is so retro about it, down to, but notably including a return to coal mining. And people keep asking, where are those jobs going to come from? Coal-fired plants are coming offline. The momentum of the nation has been going in the other direction.
Yeah, unless they're going to fire the machines that are doing the mountaintop removal, or the people who are doing all the fracking and that is competing and driving coal out of business. Frankly, that's the target if you really want to save coal. It's not people who are trying to promote solar, promote air, promote other different kinds of alternative energy. So he's actually shooting at the wrong target. And if in fact, which I don't believe, he wants to actually make some progress in this regard.
And Seema, there's the visual. It was also reported last night. Ivanka Trump was calling CEOs as an end around. Could you please call my dad? Rex Tillerson, who used to run Exxon, now Secretary of State, arguing that we should stay in Paris. There's a huge dichotomy with the president saying this is what's good for American business, with a lot of American businesses saying, hey, we were on the other side of this.
Well, and also, I mean, there were competing factions in the White House that we knew about, that we know about. But a couple weeks ago, people were talking about Steve Bannon losing influence. When the president made his announcement about Paris, Steve Bannon was front and center. Ivanka Trump and her husband were nowhere to be seen. And we know that this was an issue she cared deeply about. She had Al Gore come in and talk to President Trump, talk to her father at Trump Tower, about this very issue. So I think for liberals, and some Democrats who are hoping that she would be a moderating force on her father, this was not an example of success.
Indeed, Jamil, there was reporting last night that Bannon was the last person the president met with on this. So you see, this is, it was said it was the nationalism resurgent yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly fits the pattern that we've been understanding for Trump, is that he pretty much believes who the last person speaks to him tells him. So I think the idea here is to really get away from asking whether or not the president believes that climate change is real, because it is real. We're not asking him if he believes in God or if he believes in a particular deity. We're not asking him if he thinks the Cavs are going to come back and win the NBA Finals. We're asking him about something that has been proven to be a fact. So let's treat it as such.
And then there's the governor of your state out there in California who says this will affect nothing. We're going to keep going the way we've been going.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.